Hello, and welcome to the Three Questions podcast, where we dive deep into the world of wealth management and connect you with industry experts. I'm Maria Angelica Alvarado, founder and CEO of Luminary Catalyst. We specialize in crafting data-driven growth strategies and partnerships to help businesses and leaders thrive. I am your guest host for the final part in this three-part series on wealth management. If you or someone close to you owns a business and have little time for anything else, stay tuned. The topic is 3 questions entrepreneurs should ask about integrating wealth management with business growth strategies. Thank you for taking the time to check out the podcast. And if you enjoy this episode of 3 Questions, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the podcast and YouTube channel. Today, we're continuing to flip the script. I'm stepping in as guest host, and the guest is Wayne Baxter, the usual host of the podcast and Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. Wayne has decades of experience at advising high net worth entrepreneurs on blending personal wealth strategies with business objectives, from tax efficient scaling to legacy planning. Who better to address today's topic, the 3 questions entrepreneurs should ask about integrating wealth management with business growth strategies? Wayne, it's great to have you on this side of the mic. And thank you for inviting me to play host again. And this is the final episode in this 3-part series.
For now, anyway.
Well, it's definitely great to see
I will say this, for this particular episode, given that we're talking about business growth strategies, perfect combo here with the business growth guru over here, Maria Angelica Alvarado.
Thank you, Wayne. Wayne, before we dive into our 3 questions, let's set the table on why integrating wealth management with business growth strategies is so vital for entrepreneurs. And me being an entrepreneur myself, speaking as a business owner, most business owners find themselves juggling operations, innovation, cash flow for the company, possible cross-border elements between US and Canada, whether it's expansion, supply chains. They're not just building companies, they have the opportunity to create a wealth engine that can sustain them and their families. This makes it so essential for business owners to integrate wealth building tools with their company's business decision strategies from my perspective, right? Because I am in the trenches with them. This integration can turn wealth management into a growth accelerator, optimizing cash flow for reinvesting while protecting the risks. So, having said that, Wayne, with your work at One Capital helping entrepreneurial clients navigate these intersections, how do you see this playing out?
Well, I would say that we're philosophically aligned, and to some extent, and from talking with you, the clients that you're working with and the things we've talked about in that regard, other subject matter experts that I know around the United States, the real challenge, I think, for most business owners is getting them to focus even a little of their time on wealth management. I think a lot of times they're so immersed in their business.
Right, because that's what we are focused on to grow.
That they don't think about long term. They don't think about, why am I doing this? So I think that's the biggest challenge, is to get them to take a little set some time aside so they can actually focus on thinking about things other than just like what you talked about, the business building, all the it's like 5 lids or 5 garbage cans and 4 lids. They're constantly moving the lids around, trying to deal with everything that they have, from a business perspective. The wealth management kind of gets parked to something that they'll deal with later.
Right.
And later never comes, or it comes too soon.
It's so true, because we're too busy focused on the task at hand, which is growing the company. We forget that there's got to be a post-business strategy in place. So, having said that, Wayne, in your experience, what is the biggest mistake business owners regarding wealth management planning are making today?
Well, I'd say it's a lack of planning. And to be fair, it really applies to most families, business owners, not, business owners, W-2 employees here in the US.
Yeah.
T1 general employees back in Canada, the individual tax returns in Canada, they're called T1 generals. So it's the failure to do any kind of really in-depth planning. And one of my favorite sayings is, those who fail to plan, plan to fail. So to me, that's really the biggest mistake. It all starts with just no planning. It's all just basically, it's all going to figure itself out eventually.
And it's funny because you're a golfer, so it's almost like
I play a game that resembles golf. Here.
Well, you're a golfer.
Some friends of mine, Wayne's a golfer? Okay, yeah.
You're a golfer.
Okay, fair enough.
I didn't say PGA or professional, but you do play.
Yeah.
It seems like most business owners are more concentrating their efforts on the short game versus the long game. And you're here to show them the long game.
Very good analogy. Yeah, there you go.
I have my moments of greatness.
Yeah, well, more than a few. Yeah, they think about the short term, the here and the now, right? And well said. Very well said. Absolutely right. And so the idea is to try to think a little bit about, which is ironic because most golfers like to hit their driver.
And they forget about the short game. Yeah. That's very true. So having said that, with the business owners and you're helping them plan for their financial independence, where do you start and why?
Well, if you've been listening to this podcast, we've done this sort of 3-part series on wealth management. And if you haven't listened to the first 2, I would encourage you to go back on the website and check both of them out. But, I'm going to kind of repeat myself a little bit in that it starts really with cash flow data. And I know you're
I'm a data nerd.
Data nerd. So really, that's where it really starts. It starts with cash flow planning, doing a discovery. I mean, whether you're a business owner or an employee, most likely, you've got people in your life that you love. You may be married, maybe not, who knows? Have kids, maybe yes, maybe no. But you have a life, and so to me, it's about what is it, the things that you do. And I know maybe a lot of business owners, their business is kind of immersed in it, but there's a lot going on. Everybody has fixed expenses in their lives, and hopefully some variable discretionary spending, which is like the fun spending, right? So everybody has, housing expenses, transportation expenses, everybody eats, right? There's food expenses, some medical expenses. These are what you call fixed expenses. These are expenses you're going to have regardless of what the situation. Everybody's got those types of transportation, shelter, food, medical, grooming, dental, vision, all of those things. So those are expenses. And then the discretionary, again, the fun expenses, entertainment, like go to concerts, like to travel, whatever it is. Everybody had people, and charitable giving and all of that. These are all expenses. So we start with, what do you spend money on, and how do you see that unfolding over the next 2, 4, 7, 8, 10, 15, 20 years? How do you see that changing? And then you get that, once I have that kind of data, and then we get the idea of potential income coming in, how much of it can be saved, you can start working on planning. Not just investment planning, but tax planning, estate planning, risk management, all of that. That's where it all starts from.
And so basically, I would say that the cash flow data is like blood work when you go to the doctor. It gives you the breakdown of everything that you're doing.
The DNA.
Well, not the DNA, but like, how are you in your levels of vitamin D? How's your cholesterol? How's this? How's that? And the doctor asks you that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, this is great insight. So now let's get started with the 3 questions entrepreneurs should ask about integrating wealth management with business growth strategies.
All right.
Drawing from my work advising business owners on data-driven growth at Luminary Catalyst, here are 3 questions that often come up when aligning personal wealth with business expansion. And I also see this as a business owner. A lot of my wealth is tied to my company because at some point I might sell it, and that's going to be a huge windfall of cash coming into my estate. So let's start with question number 1. As a business entrepreneur focused on scaling my company, how can I start integrating wealth management into my growth strategy without it feeling like it's distracting me from the focus of growing the company?
Well, it's a really good question. And yes, I don't know if I'll be here, but I would love to be here for the day Luminary Catalyst is sold and you make that great windfall. I'll be delighted beyond words.
So will I, because you'll be the one managing it. Yeah, and I'll be the one cruising.
Yes. So first things first, we have to recognize that wealth management should not be in a separate silo. It's a multiplier of your business growth.
Right.
So what I would say, Mary Angelica, here's my brainwave for the 3 Questions podcast. What I would say, and for this episode, is I would recommend building. I don't think I've ever used this term before, so this just in. And I would build a wealth planning team. So this is something that we can talk about even in future conversations. I think it's a great idea for clients, and this will apply to your clients as well, is creating a wealth planning team. So who's on the team? Well, there should be the business development specialist, yourself, because you're the one helping to build the business plan.
Well, the revenue is definitely the engine to a company. No revenue, no company.
Right. So then there's yours truly, the wealth manager, but who else should be on the team? Well, there should be a tax advisor. There should be an estate planning attorney.
Absolutely.
There should be, an insurance specialist. And I'm thinking like, the business insurance specialist.
Yeah.
We collectively work together. So
and you'd be the quarterback of this.
Well, yes, we have to have somebody, and whether it's the business specialist or the wealth, typically it's usually
it's the wealth manager. Yeah.
But the bottom line is we work together as a collective entity. And another problem business owners have is they have all these advisors and they all work in silos. Nobody talks to each other. That doesn't work. So we all need to kind of work as almost as a committee. We all have to sort of become aligned with the goals and objective of the business owner. So that's what I would say first. So get a team together of trusted advisors.
And introduce them to each other.
Well, they got to be, yeah, exactly. And again, you don't need, for example, if you have 2 or 3 financial advisors, that doesn't give you diversification of risk. That gives you're working with 3 people that you don't trust, in my opinion, right? So you need one. You need one financial advisor. You need one business developer. You don't need 2 business developers because you'll have 2 people that, same thing, right? You don't need 2 tax advisors, 2 estate planning attorneys. You need one of each, and then you need to connect them with each other. They all work together to advise you. Then, again, we're starting out here, so we're taking the first stage, the first stage, the first steps. So I would say start by asking yourself some basic questions. I'm not going to list them all here, but here are some basic ones. What does financial independence look like? We're doing long-term wealth planning. What does it look like? What does life look like being financially independent? It may be that you will want to continue running your business.
Right.
Because you like doing it. Not because you need the money, but because it's something you like to do.
It's funny. I know someone, not a financial advisor. I'm sorry. I know this lady, she's financially independent.
Right.
That she's in her late 70s and still working. She's like, I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love it. It's my way of mentoring. So it goes back to your point. She's built this company and she's not retiring from it, and she doesn't need the money.
Yeah,
she built a solid plan.
Well, there's a little bit of that rings true here, I'd have to say, with yours truly. I love what I do. So what does financial independence look like? And it could be about creating multi-generational wealth, for creating wealth not just for your generation but for your children, grandchildren, etc. Is that important? For some people it is, some people it isn't. I can tell you stories of clients of mine. I remember one in particular. This goes way back. We're at a client appreciation event. This is back in Toronto, Ontario. Client comes up to me. I can remember it like it was last week. Comes up to me. He says, Wayne, he says, that money that you guys are looking after for me and my wife? And I said, yeah. He says, well, what my real goal is for it? And I went, well, to make sure that you have enough until you... He says, he cut me off. He said, I'll tell you why. He says, I put my 2 daughters through university. As far as I'm concerned, they're done.
Wow.
He said, my goal is I hope that the check to the mortician bounces when I die. I hope I have enough money to last me. And like, whoa. Now that's a bit, I wouldn't recommend that for anybody, but just to make it clear, everybody has
that's definitely
goals.
Memorable.
Yeah, I'll never forgotten that. His goal was that he had enough money to last him. He said, I hope the check to the mortician bounces. What a good Lord. So everybody has their own goals. Like some people want to create multi-generational wealth for themselves, for their loved ones, their family, their causes, right?
Their causes, yeah.
The other question I would ask is, how do you want to be remembered? Like what's important? These are the types of initial questions, and then you can get into the weeds from there. So that's how I would start.
I love that. I mean, I know that with the company, with Luminary Catalyst, I tell everybody, I ask them for their goals, and then I reverse engineer the steps that they need to take. Seems
what
like you're
we're doing.
following the same kind of
100%.
philosophy. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want to do with that money? How do you want it to look like? And then you reverse engineer the
100%.
process. That makes
Yep.
a lot of sense.
Yep.
Well, our topic is 3 questions entrepreneurs should ask about integrating wealth management with business growth strategies. I am Maria Angelica Alvarado, founder and CEO of Luminary Catalyst. We specialize in crafting data-driven growth strategies and partnerships to help businesses and leaders thrive. I am your guest host for this last episode, Wayne,
Already, yes.
in this special series of wealth management. Our guest this
And
week.
I haven't been scolded once yet, so amazing.
No, it's been good. And definitely you're a character, my friend, is Wayne Baxter, Senior Executive Manager at One Capital Management. Okay, let's move on to question number 2.
Let's get at it.
What tax efficient strategy can business owners use to reinvest profits from partnerships or expansions back into their personal wealth plan, especially when they are cross-border business owners?
Either. Okay, so every case is unique. I mentioned the DNA, I think, earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody has their own situation. So there is no, we are at One Capital, we're called a fee-only fiduciary. So every client we create a customized plan for. So every plan is unique. So these are not cut and dried for every last person listening in today. But here's some ideas, some examples. So you can use retirement vehicles to channel profits into like a 401k plan, or in Canada, you have registered retirement savings plans, or RRSPs, right? You can have tax deferred growth. Depending on type of business, you might be a SEP IRA or a solo 401k. I have clients that have both of have that. They either, right?
A SEP is a simplified employee. A SEP, correct me if I'm wrong, is a simplified employee. What is it? What is the SEP?
A SEP IRA is basically a simple IRA, retirement savings plan.
Got it.
And then you have a solo 401k. And the benefit of those is they allow for higher contributions. I think for 2026, you can save up to $69,000.
That's more than a solo 401k.
Yeah, for sure. Way
Fantastic.
over. Yeah. So you can employ life insurance, or you can set up a trust, for efficiency purposes. Permanent life insurance policy, for example, like a whole life policy, universal life policy. You can do a tax-free loan from those policies. You fund the policy, you can borrow money against the policy, and you can use that money for whatever cash venture you have, right?
Isn't that great for business partners?
Yeah, it's a great way of reinvesting. If you have an expansion, or could be for tax purposes. Right. You don't have to generate a capital gain or get the IRS involved that way. You can also use, something called an ILIT, or an irrevocable life insurance trust. You can use money in that. And the great thing about an ILIT is that they are not they're not part of your overall estate if you're exposed to a U.S.
What does an ILIT stand for?
It's called an irrevocable life insurance trust.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
ILIT. So if you have money, if you're worried about encroaching upon the the level of U.S. where you're going to be subject to U.S. estate tax, but now it's $30 million for a couple, $15 million for an individual. If your wealth has increased to that degree, and for example, you just buy a life insurance policy on your own, that life insurance policy is included in your overall value of your estate.
So if I own my own life insurance policy, I've overinflated my own estate.
Net worth by the
value of the life insurance policy.
So if you have the money into an ILIT, it's not included in your overall.
This is where they say God is in the details, and you have to know those details. Fantastic. Okay. Question number 3. For long-term sustainability, how should entrepreneurs build a multi-generational wealth framework that supports business succession while mitigating risk, like market volatility or unexpected exits?
Well, what we're trying to do here is kind of create a wealth ecosystem, I guess we'll call it.
Okay.
That means you're creating a framework that treats your business like an asset, like a part of a larger portfolio. So, to me, I think we may have mentioned earlier, I would look at using a family trust, holding companies to separate your personal wealth from operational risks. Like you have to have an succession plan. You should, for example, have a buy-sell agreement that's funded by life insurance. I have a case right now of a client of mine who's actually going through this process right now, whereby he's got 2 or 3 partners, and they've been done really well. But the reality of it is, if he were to pass away yesterday, they would not, and no, nothing against her, but they would not want to have to bring his wife into running the company.
Right.
So she needs to be bought out, right? If he were to pass away, because he don't want to be involved. So they would use life insurance. So you have a buy-sell agreement, get an attorney involved, do a buy-sell agreement, and basically there's a life insurance policy that would pay her out so the business operation can still run. They don't have to erode the value of the business because one of the 3 or 4 partners passed away.
Or go out into the market and find a business loan that maybe they don't have the revenue for.
Anyway, yeah,
that is crazy.
So that's an example.
That's a good way of mitigating risk.
Yeah. So you can, another thing you can do is you can take a portion of the liquidity from and put it into a non-business liquid investment, right? Your cross-border entrepreneurs could use currency hedged investments. Again, they talked about the fact that, one thing about One Capital, we can manage money in both Canadian and US dollars in either country. So if you have a cross-border business, say, well, I want my money invested in my home country currency, that becomes possible, especially if you're working with us.
That's really interesting. I mean, there's so many details when you're talking about
we're just scratching the surface here, to be fair.
Yeah. So before we wrap up this episode, what's one overlooked wealth management tactic that can supercharge business growth without adding complexity to an already packed schedule?
Well, I think, when you look at it from that standpoint, one overlooked area to me is, I think about playing a bit of defense here. Okay. It doesn't always have to be offense. So I think about insurance. So I think, asset protection strategy. So bringing in the business insurance specialist, getting some asset protection in place. Maybe you have to hire an attorney and put an asset protection strategy in place. It may cost a little bit of money to pay an attorney to draft some documents, but it'll be worth it.
I think that's where a lot of people put things on the back burner. They're like, there's too much money. It's a big cost. You have to change that mindset. It's an investment, because if you're building something like I'm building Luminary Catalyst, I am now, I actually have an employee. I have 2 employees. So that means that I'm not just supporting my household, but 2 other households. And what's going to happen with them, if I'm not doing these kind of mitigating risk. So that's really awesome. So to close out, if an entrepreneur is just starting to bridge this personal wealth plan with their business vision, which is where I'm at right now, I'm building my company. What's a practical step I can use to build long-term resilience? And I'm putting myself as this business owner, by the way, because I have skin in this game.
Yeah, let's think about what we've talked about. What we talked about was starting with doing a cash flow plan, and just start at the beginning. Start with kind of the way we talked about it at the very beginning of the podcast here today, which was start with cash flow planning, start with a vision. It doesn't have to be rocket science. You have to understand.
Or complex.
Right.
It could just be starting out with something simple and something to build on.
Right. So the idea is, what is it you're trying to achieve? Start looking at your life from the standpoint of how you spend money, what you want to spend money on, and put together a basic plan. And it can grow and it evolves over time. It isn't going to be one thing you do once and it's over. Like you build on it. Okay, so let's start. If the first step anybody can take is say, let's collect some data. How about we start there? Let's collect some data on what you spend money on. And then again, the idea of creating the wealth building team, I think, is a really good idea. Getting all the major stakeholders in place, the people that you can call your quote unquote trusted advisors, business development specialists, wealth manager, tax advisor, estate planning attorney, insurance specialist, business insurance. Get that team together, get them to collaborate with each other, and from there, you have a committee that kind of can help advise you while you are running your business.
And I'll take it one more step, because I think I'm putting myself in the shoes of anybody out there who's a business owner, right? We know who we know, but we don't know who we don't know. And I think by aligning ourselves with someone like yourself, you've built these teams in the past. You've participated in these teams in the past. You've got a podcast that brings together subject matter experts.
We have quite an alumni now.
You have a heck of an alumni now.
Well,
so it makes
people,
sense.
Actually, now do you think of it?
Yeah, and they're all strong candidates, and I would say strong professionals in all these areas that you speak about. So I would say it's definitely a no-brainer for them to reach out to you. You've got the bench of professionals and SMEs.
Pretty deep bench right now.
It's a pretty deep bench. Yes. So for those watching us on the website, we've included your information on the screen.
And yours too, by the way.
Oh, mine too. Thank you. For those who are listening, could you share what is the best way for them to contact you?
Well, I would say probably the easiest way is, there's multiple options. The website, you can go on the website, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. There's a link you can actually click and schedule a meeting. That's one. You can email me, wbaxter@onecapital.com, or your favorite, pick up the phone.
Old-fashioned phone call works.
Yeah, 805-719-4211. Failing that, a lot of people find me on LinkedIn, so I have a LinkedIn page. You can also message me from there, and you can go there and find a lot, if not all, of the posts that we've had for the podcast, which we've now done over 150 of.
Congratulations on that milestone.
Yeah.
And on that note, thank you, Wayne. It's been great and fun playing host on this side of the mic and having you on that hot seat right there.
Yeah, it's been great.
It has been great. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Wayne Baxter.
Yay, and Mariangelica Alvarado, Luminary Catalyst. I look forward to bringing you the Three Questions podcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our podcast and YouTube channels. And to receive a notification when our latest episode has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Lastly, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and we will see you soon.